towards the end of the dissertation, I wrote 4 of my chapters. I had a 5th chapter because I was actually trying to figure out what his views were on religion, which we'll talk about in due course, because that was one of your focuses. So he invited me, thanks to Judith Sklar introduction. He would do me the honor of reading the dissertation so far. And then I would show up at his place and we would discuss it. And I was trying to think about the last chapter. Because it was about religion. I could just tell from what he'd published that there's a lot under the surface about religion that he hadn't unearthed. And I could feel some of it in the writing, but wanted to just confirm it and to see whether I was completely barking up the wrong tree. But when I got there, he did ask me, so what do you want to, because I was just a young graduate student, what do you want to do with your life and career? And I said, well, I think I'm going to be a journalist. And he looked at me and his face fell. And he said, oh dear, I've always thought that the need to know the news every day is a nervous disorder. And he said it in such a way that was charming, made me laugh, of course. But then the 10 years or 20 years later, I was blogging. And I'm like, what would my great mentor think of this? What an absolutely crazy way to live, he would think. He lived towards the end of his life, this was in his late 80s, in a slate cottage on the edge of a cliff, really, in Dorset, in southern England, right near the Channel. A small little village called Langton Matravers, if I recall correctly. A house with no central heating, as far as I could tell, just slate brick, with a loft bedroom, which you climbed up on a ladder. This 88-year-old, however he was then. A library that was simply astonishing. And he left me alone for a few minutes when I just every language, every European language, every conceivable edition of this, that, and the other. An incredibly eclectic bunch of titles. And then he made me a lovely little lunch of cold meat and then stoked the fire. And we sat down for 3 hours in the afternoon in front of a fire. Now that was for me, and still is, the high point of my intellectual life, because to meet someone who have you been studying, as I had been nonstop for like 2 years, just nothing but him really, and then meeting him, and then asking him the questions I always wanted to ask him was amazing.
What did you ask him, and what did you talk about?
Oh, well, I wanted to probe him a little bit about religion, because I could see from his earlier stuff that he was interested in Christianity. He'd written some interesting things about Christianity. It's kind of a modernist as far as Christianity was concerned. He was very much indifferent to, he believed religion had to be alive and today and mean things for people today to exist. Otherwise, it's just a sort of what Larkin would call a moth-eaten brocade of past beliefs. He was, again, this is not the old school folk. But I wanted to ask him about salvation, what he thought about salvation. And he said, well, that was the one essay I meant to write, haven't written, which is simply, why would anyone want to be saved? What do you want to be saved from? The idea that death would mean an utter erasure of one's humanity into some blithe, eternal goodness or light or perfection was something he found horrifying, because what he loved was the imperfection. What he loved was the vagaries of humans. And he actually believed that God created us in some way to enjoy that, to enjoy watching us make fools of ourselves, to see the variety of individual characters. And that was the joy of life for him, to rid it of all its problems, to rid it of all of its evil, to rid it of all of its contradictions would be to remove the mystery and enjoyment of life. And that was very revealing to me about his understanding of what Christianity is about. It's about a way of being in the now that is fully open to the eternal. And that's a very hard practice. But I think that's what he thought of as religion. So the idea that religion would be a bit like achievement, this thing you put off until you die, this thing that's going to come, you got to do all this stuff now and then eventually you'll be saved, as opposed to you've got to do all this work now in order to get this achievement, this career, this name for yourself. No. Live now. Believe what you can believe.
That's
And
absolutely right.
fuse your life fuse your practical life with these eternal principles. And if you can pull that off, you're living a fully realized life.